Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a very exciting broadcast because it's this time of year again where I actually get to show and talk to you about the application I've been using in the background for quite some time, testing and so forth. And it's always really difficult to not be able to share all the good stuff which is coming up for it. So that's the plan today. We are going to talk about oh, I meant to put in my slightly fancier slide. Here we go. So first of all, I'm going to tell you what's coming in Capture One 23, and then we're going to divide up those various different features and give you a demo on each of those. So those are going to be smart adjustments. So that's the first thing I'm going to talk to you about, which is a brilliant addition for those of you working with people, portraits, events, and high volumes. Based on that, I'm going to talk to or show you a little bit of community feedback based on the testing of those features. We're going to look at a great feature called faster culling, which is going to help those of you again who shoot volume and need to dig through a vast amount of photos and get to your best selection as quick as possible. I've got a special guest, Daniela Almona, and we're going to have a brief chat with her. She shot our campaign imagery, which is fantastic. She is going to talk a little bit to us about working with layers and styles as well. Capture One Live has had quite a few changes, so I'm going to demonstrate that online as well so you can see how that works. And there's a few other little tweaks and things that we've made, so I'll talk about those, and then we will have time for Q&A. I've also got Diego online with me as well, answering some of your questions. I'll get to a few of those questions as we go through the live stream. And your questions, the ones that I'll answer are the ones that are kind of on topic, if you like, with regards to the new features. So any questions at all, please don't be afraid to ask about the new stuff that's coming up. And between myself and Diego, we will try and answer those as much as possible. So first thing we're going to talk about is smart adjustment. So let's fly into Capture One, and then you'll be able to see what's going on. Okay, so what are smart adjustments? So smart adjustments are solving an issue of copy and apply being less than perfect in all situations. So you all know how copy and apply works. Let's just take a look. So copy and apply simply lifts a set of adjustments and copies that over to pictures that were shot under very similar scenarios. And one example could be these three pictures here. It would be easy for me to, let's just say I adjust the white balance a little bit, let's make it a bit brighter, and then I would copy and apply those adjustments over to those pictures. But copy and apply is exact numerical values. And if I wanted to copy and apply, let's say for another sequence, like there's these three pictures, these were shot under slightly different lighting, different white balance than these three, so I would then have to do another separate copy and apply. So I'm having to do lots of, let's just reset everything, lots of different copy and applies every time my lighting changes, which isn't super efficient. So wouldn't it be nice if there was a way that we could have some kind of reference image which we could then use to match exposure and white balance across a sequence? So let's show you first of all how this works on, let's do this sequence of 6. So if I select this sequence of 6, basically you can see very, very easily that these were shot. I think I must have changed the white balance in my camera. I took these in Iceland last month. So I couldn't do a copy and apply effectively for each, for this whole sequence, because the white balance is quite different and the exposure is a bit different, as you can see. But what we can do with this feature, as I said, is to set a reference which Capture One is going to work off. So let's do a similar thing. I'm just going to white balance here. I'm going to bump up the exposure a little bit. And as usual, I forgot to turn on my mouse locator. So let's turn this guy on so you can see where I'm pointing. And over here, we've got a new tool called Smart Adjustments. Now, by default, that lives in your Adjustments tool tab. If you've customized Capture One, then you're not going to see this tool unless you add it. And you can do that simply by right-clicking on any tool tab and saying Add Tool, and then you'll find, if we scroll down, Smart Adjustments. So if you do have a custom workspace going on, you might want to manually add that to your space. Okay, all right. Okay, So I'm also gonna, we've bumped up the exposure a little bit here as well. So now in our Smart Adjustments tool, I want to set that as the reference. And now you see this thumbnail appear. Now this feature is based on facial recognition. So it's going to be way more successful, way more consistent if you're using it on people, portraits, events with people, and so on. So that's what it's designed for, and it's important to keep that in mind. So this reference that I now have over here, we can now use to apply to any sequence of pictures that I want. So if I select all of these shots, so we've got the two which were similar to the first one and the remaining three which were very different, we can now hit apply over here, and now they'll be all normalized nicely together. So that's based on picking up the facial recognition in each shot and then balancing the look of the skin tone and the face across all of those pictures. Now that one you might not think is super challenging. It's relatively straightforward one, but we're going to up the game a little bit, and we are going to also incorporate it into a style as well, which kind of makes a style smart and a lot more powerful than it would be normally. There was a question which I saw flash past. Is this the same as the normalize tools? There is a tool called Normalize in Capture One. No, this is very different because this is based on some AI technology and facial recognition. So it is not the same. Kim says, why can't I set the same white balance to all? Well, let's have a look at the white balance of these pictures. So look here. So the white balance for this shot is 9,109. 9,143, so they're not exact finite values. If you look at the exposure tool down here, you see it's a little bit different. Now if we look at the white balance here, it's 8482. So the white balance, and this one is 7834, 8739. So the white balance has been tweaked to work better in the situation, and it's not just a numerical copy value across. That's super important. Simon said, would it work on football or rugby matches? Basically, yeah, the face doesn't have to be super huge. And let's have a look at this now. So if we go across, let's grab this sequence of pictures, something like this. So we've got a variety of different situations. We've actually got a couple, so it's not just one face. Some of them, the face is, a little bit bigger. It's like super tiny over here. We've got different white balances, varying exposure, and so on. So let's compare this. Sorry, I meant to have all of those selected. So let's think about a scenario of using styles and a way to make styles smarter. So let's go to one of our style packs, and I'm going to use Beyond Film. Now before you all jump in and say what's the difference between advanced and standard, we're going to get to that because there's also a really nice update which I mentioned at the start, which is being able to use layers into a style, which is super cool. So let's throw on a style for all these pictures. So if I do something like this film style here, F200, so very quickly you can see the preview like so. So if I just apply this style for a second, I'm going to take it off. What am I going to have to do as a photographer? So I've got the look of my style, but this photo over here is a little bit too on the dark side. This one is maybe, a little bit too bright, I would say. The white balance is incorrect on this one. This one I might drop down the exposure a bit and so on. So out of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 pictures, I'm probably going to have to go into 5 of them and do a little tweak. Now on 9 pictures, that's maybe not too bad, but multiply that by 100, 900, 1,000 pictures. That's going to be a significant toll on my workload. So let's take off this style. And then let's pick a reference image. So let's go for this one. Why not? So I'm going to put that style back on, and I'm going to go to my adjustment tool. You can see the style that's been applied. I'm going to bump up the exposure a little bit, and let's also warm it up slightly. So now I've got a style, and I want to incorporate those smart elements into it as well. So I'm going to save this style. I don't necessarily have to set as a reference, but I'm going to save this style, and you'll see here, if I bring the dialog out, at the top of the Save Style tool, we've got Smart White Balance and Smart Exposure. So that's going to bake that Smart White Balance and Smart Exposure into the style as a constant reference, which we can use on all our other pictures. So if I go for save, and let's actually save it next to, what was it, Beyond Film, wasn't it? So let's save it, F200 2, let's call this one Smart. And we're going to save it next to that style so I can quickly whiz between the two of them. So let's select all these other pictures, like so. Go back to my Styles tool tab, and now you will see under Standard, we've got F200. So let's just hover the mouse over there. I'll hide my browser so there's a bit more space. So let's hover the mouse over there, and you can see that style applied. And whilst it's got the style look about it, as I said, I'm still going to have to go in and do a little bit of fixing. But now if I apply the Smart style, like so, now actually everything is pretty even. So if you remember this shot, if we just stick on the before and after, so if I drag these across, you can see the changes that have been made like so. So this one's been brightened. The white balance is now fitting nicely with that reference which I saved, and that was all in one click. Do I have to do a little tweak? Yeah, maybe actually this one, I think I'd prefer this one a little bit warmer. But that's when Speed Edit comes into play. When if you don't know Speed Edit, that's simply a way of using your keyboard to do some very quick adjustments. So if I wanted to just warm up this one picture, let's just open up the overhead camera for a second. Looking at my keyboard here, first of all, I'm going to turn this little feature off, Edit All Selected. So that means my selected picture is going to be the only one that's edited. So if I hold down 1 on my keyboard, you can see the Kelvin sliders now popped up underneath this picture. If I drag, you can't see my pen, but all I'm going to do is drag left and right. So if I warm up this picture, so I'll just do it dramatically, so you can see it get warmer or you can see it get colder, I can get it roughly into the ballpark of the other pictures, like so. So that was a much more varied sequence of pictures. Like those 6 on the beach were, you know, pretty similar in terms of the size of the face, situation and that kind of stuff. They just had varying white balance and exposure. These are a lot more varied. We've got a couple, we've got some with 2 faces, some with 1 face. Sometimes they're very small, sometimes they're a bit bigger, but you can see the Smart style does a way better job than it does compared to the normal style. Let me just reset those and show you again. Or let's turn on Edit All Selected, reset everything. So dumb style, like so, still stuff to fix. Smart style, let's click that on. Pretty much job done. So this is, you know, a massive time saver for anyone who's working in this kind of work. So let's just bring you up another small example. So Eric Ronald, we're going to chat about Eric later. He's one of our ambassadors. So let's very quickly just go to this one. It's a little bit too dark, so I'm going to brighten that up. I'm going to cool it down slightly. I'm going to set that as my reference. And then for these other 3 pictures, which are shot in very different conditions, inside, outside, we've got a couple here, we've got a couple there. These 2 are in daylight, lighting very different. So now if I say apply, they're now normalized up very nicely. And also, hopefully you can see the speed at which it's working at as well. It's not having to number crunch, you're not having to teach Capture One about your particular, you know, photos. You don't have to upload anything to our cloud server or anything like that. It's simply based on the face detection of your reference photo. Okay, I saw lots of questions that were whizzing back and forth, and I won't have time to answer all of those, but I will randomly scroll through and see what's going on. So Dan says, do you need to make an adjustment to exposure and white balance for this to work? In other words, if I like the way a photo looks without any adjustments, can it be used as reference? Yes, it can. So you don't have to tweak those exposure and white balance to set as a reference. When you set a reference, it's then literally face recognition. That's the reference I'm going for. If you've adjusted white balance and exposure, fine. If you haven't, that's also perfectly all right. And also, one thing that I didn't point out here, when you're applying, you can uncheck white balance or exposure. So if you only want a smart adjustment to affect one of those elements, then you can do so. So you could actually save a style that only corrected white balance and apply that on import. So if you think about that as well. So in the import dialog, you can always set Capture One to apply a style on import. So there's nothing to actually stop you adding a style, a smart style, to your import settings, and then as it imports, it's applying that smart style as well. So that's pretty cool. So as Dennis says, nope, you can just say, wow, I nailed white balance and exposure on this one straight out of camera and set it. If only that were true all the time, but that's absolutely spot on. Doesn't work for landscape photos. No, it's not a feature that's designed for landscape photos. I would say try it. There will be some averaging going on, but without that facial reference, then I would say your results are going to vary a little bit more as well. But it's definitely a huge time saver for those of you who are working with people. Okay, let's scroll down a bit. That's also a good question. Don, what about if you have a mixture of people with light skin tones and people with dark skin tones in the same photos? It will take an average. And I know that sounds, well, that's not going to work. But I would honestly push you to try it for yourself. Because it's a little bit hard to get your head round at first. And to be honest, I was skeptical when I was first using it because I thought, well, how can that possibly be reliable and consistent and work? But, you know, if we just go through this sequence of pictures, they're pretty good in terms of how they're looking, you know, in terms of color and exposure and so on. And if I just put on that style, I would have had to have done a lot more. And these aren't necessarily the easiest set of pictures either. You know, they're shot at different times of the day. This was towards the end of the day. This was pretty much first thing, you know, in the morning as well. So if I actually just stick this style on it, because did I put this style on it? I can't remember if I included this one in the sequence. No, so this one is straight out of camera. So let's just put that smart style on it. There we go, job done. So it's warmed it up a little bit. The exposure's had a little bit of a bump. If I wanted to do a quick speed edit on anything else, I'll take the highlights down. That's it. So I don't even have to go into my highlight tool. There was a question which came up, like any way to speed up speed edit a little bit. So my tip for you, because you said there's a slight delay. So if I press and hold the A key, you see there's a slight delay before the highlight slider comes up. If you immediately start dragging with your mouse pen, doesn't matter, then it will work straight away. So you don't have to wait for that to come up. So if I hold down A and drag, see I'm immediately into speed edit. Hang on, let's just put the overhead camera on. I know you can't quite see my pen. There it is, so like so. Sorry for those, so you can see how quickly I can get into speed edit. It's only if you wait, then it pops up. But if you start dragging straight away, you can, you know, actually adjust super quickly. So it's entirely possible. So a little segue, it's not what we're meant to be talking about, but I think speed edit combined with smart adjustments is actually a really nice way to pair it, because the smart style, smart adjustments will get you a very long way there, much closer to a finished edited product than just sticking a style on your photo. And then speed edit takes you to the finish line in a super fast way. Okay, so that was smart adjustments. Now a little bit of social proof as well. So Eric, I mentioned briefly, one of our ambassadors. Let's just show you some Eric pictures that I've got up here. So this is Eric, first of all, beavering away editing on his nice setup that he's got. I'm sure his office doesn't look like that all the time, but it'd be nice if it did. And we had a chance to let Eric get a hold of this beforehand, and just to give you an idea of the kind of work that Eric is doing. You saw some in Capture One. These are some other samples as well. He's based out in Australia. He's a destination photographer, and also, of course, shoots locally around his area as well. But what Eric found, and then I've just pulled out some quotes because we had a little chat earlier on. I'd love to have brought him on live, but as I said, he's in Australia. So him getting up at probably 4 o'clock in the morning wouldn't have been a good situation for him. So like any wedding, portrait, event photographer, anyone who deals with large volumes of people, he spends a lot of time adjusting exposure and white balance, and obviously at mass volume. And what he liked, the fact that he can, you know, finesse set that target image that we saw in Capture One and then just apply that to a huge bunch of pictures. I mean, I did 9. You could do it to 900, to be honest. The quantity is irrelevant, really, and you could see at the speed at which it applied at as well. That's just a huge time saver. And then it's really quite incredible, was a nice way to fit with it. We also put this in the hands of a company called Image Salon. So Image Salon is based out in Canada, and they're a image editing bureau for not just wedding photographers, but all kinds of various different photographers. Due to public demand, they started incorporating Capture One for their clients as well. So essentially, someone who's working with Image Salon can send Image Salon a Capture One catalog. They can do the edits and then send it back to them. But obviously, they want to be as efficient as possible. And to them, the smart adjustments and smart style feature was very much a game changer when they're processing large quantities, because they're always dealing with big quantities. What I really liked about this particular quote was, and this is a concern which, you know, always comes up at the start when working with something new, you know, how well is it going to work across the board for my various different image editing? So Image Salon said it works especially well in even and consistent lighting, but even in trickier lighting conditions, which I think is worth taking note of, because don't be afraid to push it when you try it. Don't think, oh God, I need to have these 10 pictures of the same person stood in exactly the same spot and it must be within 10 minutes. Forget about that. Just try and push it and see what level of consistency you can get across bigger time scales, different situations, and so on. And as Image Salon said here, it's going to give you a much cleaner starting point for your edits. And it's about gaining time back. You know, obviously they want to deliver as quick as possible. They want to turn around as fast as possible. You as photographers want to have more time doing the fun stuff and less time having to deal with, you know, crappy, boring things like editing, exposure and white balance and so on. So giving you time back is also super important. And that was from Joanne48 from Image Salon out in Canada. So we're very pleased that you had the chance to test it and that it made a big difference to your workflow. Other people who've been trying this out as well. Obviously, we have our beta testing pool. Anyone's welcome to join our beta testing pool if you like. Alex, our product manager, he surveyed everyone in the beta testing pool, or at least those who answered the survey, and said roughly using smart adjustments would save 1/3 of their editing time. And again, that's a pretty beefy amount as well. So that's smart adjustments, and as I said, give it a try. Oh, what I meant to do earlier on was, for those of you who can't necessarily stay for our full session, if you want to download the trial, you can do so right away. So if you just go to our website, captureone.com, Diego, if you're listening, stick up the link a few times in the chat as well. And then that means you can try out on the 30-day trial, try all the new features that you've seen and which you're going to see as well. So head to captureone.com and try out the download. So it's fully featured, no credit card required, all of that stuff. You can just download and get going. Okay, so let's talk about the next thing, which is faster culling. So again, we're talking about, you know, mass volume work here as well, giving you some time back to do more of the fun stuff. It's something which I'm very bad at, is I get very excited about shooting something like what you saw on screen. So I shot this stuff, as I said earlier on, in Iceland this month, and I get super excited shooting it and less excited when I have to go through and pick and edit everything. So one of those things, obviously, when you're shooting this kind of stuff, these are obviously, I've been kind to myself here, is picking out, you know, some of the good stuff. There was a whole lot of other dud captures and photos that I wouldn't want to use. So how can we help you to get to the good stuff first of all? So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a memory card. This is actually my memory card from Iceland, so you get to see all the crappy photos that I shot as well. So what we're going to do is put this into a card reader in front of me, and that's going to open up Capture One's import window, which if you're an existing user of Capture One, you will know and love. So you can see the image count up at the top there. So this is going to stop at around just under 900 images. So I've got 887 images on this card. And as I said, you can see all the crappy stuff that I shot as well, with the rare occasional kind of good photo thrown in there as well. And you can see I've got a lot of pictures which are near identical. And sifting through those is time consuming and boring, and sometimes it can be a little bit on the slow side. So what we've done is give you a new tool called grouping. And what this is going to do is two things. It's going to group the photos based on similarity of the photo content. And we've also got some other tools which will help you get through to the decent picture the fastest as well. So let's turn on enable groups and see what happens. So first of all, you're going to see a progress bar zoom along underneath here. Now this is 900 pictures, and Capture One's examining every single picture still on the memory card, caching its image content and comparing those to all the other pictures on the card as well. Now it's not based on the time they were shot or anything basic like that, it's actually analysing the image content. Now this grouping only has to be done once. So now that I've done this grouping, and I'm going to tweak a slider in a minute, and you're going to see the performance is almost instant. So if we look up here, you can see Capture One has put these photos into various different groups based on the similarity of content. Now, if I want some smaller groups, I can say, don't be so, critical. Let's have them a bit less similar, or be really critical. And let's move this up. Now you can see that my groups have got smaller. And at any point I can adjust this slider, and you can see the grouping change, and it's near instantaneous as well. So it doesn't have to go through and do a secondary analysis. Now if I go into the viewer up here, we get a slightly different view once again, and this is where we can use our good old shortcuts on our keyboard. So if I go to our overhead camera, and you can just about see my cursor keys. So I'm going to be using the cursor keys. I'm going to hide this overhead view in a minute because it's obscuring too much of Capture One, but I'm using left and right to navigate through my groups. And then I'm going to use up and down to go through those pictures in those groups. So left and right to move through the groups, up and down to go through the contents of that group. So if I go through here, so you can see this group of pictures has 3 shots, and these are those 3 pictures. This group of pictures has 1 shot, like so. And if I think, well, actually, that's pretty similar to that one, let's bring that slider down a bit. Now it's incorporated those in. So it's very quick to fine tune the slider to build the groups that you want. So right cursor key to move through the groups, and then I can go up and down like so. Now let's find something like use case kind of thing. So I've got a lot of pictures of Rasmus here. So thanks to Rasmus for being a good model. And out of all these pictures, I've got a lot of similar poses. Which one would I like to have? Now I'm still reading off the memory card here. So notice how quickly that I can go through them as well. And you might be thinking, well, what about, is it in focus? So I can double click and zoom into 100% like so. Now these were shot with a Sony A7 R4, my A7R4, not the 5, boohoo. Of course they release a new camera as soon as I get an A7R4. So this is the A7R4, so big files as well, uncompressed RAW, so pretty beefy files that we're reading off the card as well. And what Capture One's doing is digging into the RAW file and using the preview that's already been made by the card. So we don't really have any processing overhead, it's simply reading that preview. And you'll see if I go between 2 pictures, like so, then that high resolution preview is cached. So if I want to think, okay, which one is Rasmus has the best smile, or is it in focus? I think this one looks pretty good. Now I want to mark this for import. So all I can do is tap my spacebar, and you can see down here we have this little check mark brought up like so. So just by using, my cursor keys, double tap on the keyboard to zoom to 100%, and then I can advance to my next group, and let's zoom out, and then I can move up and down these pictures really, really quickly. So if I just go through, let's go and find a big group here, I'm just going to hold down, so my cursor key, so you can see how quickly that I'm whizzing through those pictures. So it's super, super fast. So again, we're using that preview from the card. As well as being able to tag for import with the spacebar. If I want to, I can also use the star ratings and color tags, and you can use your shortcuts for those as well if you wish. Let's have a look. Can I preview these photos with the style applied? No, because as I said, we're using the preview of the memory card. This view is all about performance and speed. And the fastest way that we can, deliver to you the pictures that are on your memory card is to use that built-in preview, because that gives you the most amount of speed. So you can judge composition and sharpness very, very quickly, and also be able to mark for import or add a star rating and color tag, check my focus like so. Now, depending on the manufacturer, the size of the preview might be a bit bigger, might be a bit smaller, but I would say, pretty much any of the manufacturers now with relatively modern cameras give you a really nice preview, which you can make those judgment calls from. But it would be very difficult if I couldn't zoom in, of course, to be able to tell, is this picture in focus or not? So we've also added the filters tool here. So if you want to filter further, for example, you can see I've filtered down to 5 stars. So if you want to do another culling pass, then you could do so as well and still use that grouping feature. Don't worry. If, like me, you have a very short attention span for this kind of thing, you can, of course, disable, or not disable, you can come out of this import window and come back into it again, and you'll have the grouping remembered, any star ratings you've put on, color tags, and so on and so forth. Is it possible to import the whole group? Yeah, so we can also shift select. So if I, did a select all or command A of the group, so that was Nor who was asking, is it possible to import the whole group? And then again, if I hit my space bar, then I can mark all of them. So if I decide, wow, David, you did such a great job of capturing all these pictures, command A to select all, space bar to mark them all like so. So you're just tagging them for import. Let's see, after culling, is the import process faster or is it the same? Because for me in concert photography, that's a long wait before I can start editing. Couple of things in the import process, you don't have to start for it. You don't have to wait for it to finish. As soon as you're importing, you can start editing. You don't have to wait for previews to build. You don't have to wait for the entire import to finish. So as soon as we're putting images into Capture One, you can get editing straight away. Brandon, you have read my mind. Does grouping only work whilst importing? No. Now we know that some of you don't need or don't wish to do that cull off the memory card. Like let's say you're short of time for security, you just want to dump everything into Capture One, then you can do so, and then we can access this from in Capture One. Let's cancel out of that. And a little hot tip from me, I'm just going to eject this memory card so we can talk about it a second. Oh, I left my time machine plugged in, that was bad. Let's eject those as well. So pulling out this card, little hot tip. This is not I don't think my camera will focus, so I'll have to read it for you. Oh, there we go, just about, almost. So this is a Lexar, oh, it's too shiny to read it. 128 gigabyte, but it's a 250 megabit per second read speed. So it's not the fastest memory card out there, bytes and above. But if you're using, a super slow card and a super slow card reader, then that might impact performance, of course, that you can import. So this is a pretty decent card, and I've got a really nice SanDisk USB-C professional card reader, which actually operates a lot faster than the card reader that I've got in my USB-C dock. So there's a significant difference on the import speed between those two readers, even though they kind of look the same. They're both connected by USB. So well, actually the CalDigit dock that I've got is connected by a Thunderbolt. So in theory, that should be super speedy. But the actual card reader in there is not a great spec. So if you want the best import speed, then get yourself a decent card reader as well. Okay, so going back to Brendan's question, let's switch it up. We're going to look at some animals because a comment came up during testing like, oh, does this only work on people and that kind of stuff? No, it doesn't. So let's do it on animals. So what you'll see up here is a cull button in the top. So if I hit this, and we're going to have a very similar view. You can see the grouping going on. It's a little bit quicker because these are on the hard drives, and this was 136 pictures, so it wasn't the 900 pictures that you saw before. You've got your similarity slider, and then you've got the filters tool and some metadata as well. So again, if I just drag the similarity slider, then you'll see the groups get, smaller, or the groups get larger. So if we go into our viewer, let's just adjust this a little bit. So if we go into our viewer, we've got our first group up the top here. And then same thing, using right and left cursor keys, you can see this out of focus animal. Top marks for anyone who can identify what that is. We've got some seals, we've got some red pandas, we've got some cute otters, slightly different. So you can pretty much see how the similarity is working in terms of the pictures that it's grouping together. But in this case, if we wanted this group to be a bit smaller, I would say let's make these more similar, like so. And now you can see, okay, there's a group of very similar shots. There's a group of, these ones. I would tweak the similarity down a little bit, like so. And then now we've got a group which kind of works with what I'm looking for. So it doesn't have to be people, it could be landscapes, it could be monkeys. As you can see here, it really makes no difference. So that's where you can find it, Brandon. So if you prefer to put everything into Capture One, you can do so. If you want to do it on the card, you could do so as well. A little bit of social proof from Rob. Thanks, Rob. With smart adjustments being face dependent, I just tried it in a bunch of shots of a bride's dress and shoes, and it matched them really well. Good to know. So as I said, people, don't be afraid to push it a little bit as well. All right, so next thing we're going to do, hopefully, Danielle, you can hear me. We're going to talk to our wonderful guest for 5 or 10 minutes. And her name is Danielle Almona, and she's a photographer based out of the USA. So hopefully, Danielle, you can hear me because I'd like to bring you on in a second. So there she is. Nice one. Let me just get Danielle up on screen. And let's take you out of there, and then like so. Okay, so now we can go and find Danielle. Hi, Danielle. How you doing? Oh, we just need to unmute. I'd unmute you, but I don't have the power. Oh, yes, maybe I do. Hey, there we go. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Hi.
Hi, let's put your name back up again so people can see it. Daniela, sorry, Almona. That's very bad of me to say Daniela. So,
Okay.
welcome. Thanks for joining me
Of course, glad to
briefly
be
today.
here.
So, Daniela was responsible for a lot of our campaign imagery, which you'll see some of when I talk about Capture One Live. So just Daniela, in your own words, just tell us who you are and what you do, where you're from, and so on.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Daniela. I'm a photographer based in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm originally from Lagos, Nigeria. My work is mainly portraiture slash editorial photography, and a lot of my work is centered around photographing people of color. And as a Black woman, I think it's it's true to me and it's true to what I believe in to photograph my community and showcase the different people and just highlight what makes us special.
Fantastic. And as I said, you were responsible for our campaign imagery, which I love.
Yes, yeah.
Beautiful, colourful, sharp. It's just fantastic. So I'm
Thank
very happy with
you.
that. Oh, can you share your screen for us, and then we have a little look at
Of
Capture One.
course. Let's see. Let's see. Okay.
There we go.
Is that on?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
So yeah, and describe typically the kind of work you do as well, because I remember from listening to an interview you did with us, which we'll also have up on our channels. You're kind of obsessed with color as well, yeah.
Yes. Um, of course. So as you can see in all these photos,
Yeah.
um, I my work starts from color, like the main color theory. I kind of figure out the color palette I want to put together, and these colors are based on the emotions I want my people to feel when they look at the photos, the emotions I want to feel while I'm taking the photos,
Hmm.
and different colors mean different things to different people, and I try to work with that, and also what accentuates the model. So if I was shooting different skin tones, trying to figure out what colors would light them best. And I guess that's where my photography starts. And you can see in all these photos, bright colors make
Hmm.
up my work. I think I love fun portraits. And I love taking fun portraits of people and having them look at it and just feel good about themselves. And color in itself can do that to people.
Definitely.
And
You can't help
that's
but feel happy when looking at these pictures.
exactly, exactly.
I'm in a better mood already. Yeah. So you had the opportunity to try out Capture One from an earlier point in time as well,
Yes,
and
I do.
working with styles as layers. So that's something where, or layers in styles, I should say it the right way around. That was something that was interesting to you as well. So can you tell us a little bit about how you incorporate that?
Of course.
Hmm.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
My mouse
Hmm.
suddenly. Okay, there we
Not
go.
behaving.
No. So I usually have a bunch of different styles. I
Hmm.
think I can start. Is it okay if I just start from a plain photo that hasn't been
Yeah, of course.
worked
Yeah, definitely.
on? Okay.
Even better.
Let's go here. Let's sort of look at. Okay. So I have a bunch of different styles that I
Hmm.
kind of named. Ignore the names. I'm not a name guru or
It's
anything.
like my name's, yeah, layer one, layer two, layer three, exactly some
Exactly.
style. Yeah.
But I have the different layers. Sorry, the
Mm.
different types of styles that I use for my editorial work, portrait work.
Mhm.
And based on the photo, I kind of figure out what style I want to work with. And I
Mhm.
think I will apply this style. And what I like to do is sometimes I like to layer my styles
Mhm.
as well. Um, so let's apply this to the background first of all. And then 1 second.
Oops. Hi everybody. We just lost Daniela on the connection for a second there. So what we will do, I will jump into showing you a little bit more about layers and styles as Daniela was about to. So if she calls back, if we re-establish the connection, then I'll put her straight back on again. So what we were about to get to, and it was, yeah, I agree, Alistair, incredible work by Daniela. Please check her out on her channels as well. We can put some links up to see, so you can see exactly learn a bit more about her work and so on. There will be an interview with her up on our blog as well in the coming days, so I'd urge you to have a look at that as well, because her work is really fantastic. All right, so if Daniela comes back, I'll bring her back straight on screen if we can get that connection back up and running. But what I want to talk to you about, and what Daniela was about to talk to you about, was talking about using styles and styles with layers as well. And then we get to talking about Capture One Live, and then the last few features, and then I will let you good people get back to your evenings. All right, so a few of you have been asking, how can I get these updated styles? Because you might have seen some of the pictures, or sorry, some of the styles down here now with a label that says advanced and standard. So let's just bring up, let's just go and grab old Rasmus here. So let me reset that back to normal. And then looking at our styles. So if we've got Beyond Film Standard, so you can see there was our smart style earlier. So when we apply a style, we can do one or two things. We can either just hit the style and then that puts it over the whole shot, or we can right click and we can apply that to a new layer, and then that gives you more versatility with reducing the opacity. So let's just put on this one for one example and apply that to a new layer, and then we can dial that down or increase that as much as we wish. That's great. However, a style can contain lots and lots of different things. It might have color edits, it might have contrast, might have some color grading, and so on and so forth. So being able to vary the opacity is great, but of course you're affecting all those different elements. So what we've done with this feature is be able to, and this has been a long-standing request in the community, is to be able to incorporate layers into a style, because that gives you much more flexibility. So if we look at the same film pack, Beyond Film Advanced, and look what happens when I hover over these pictures. Sorry, hover over these styles. I keep saying pictures for some reason. Hover over these styles. So now the same style F200, we've got 3 varying different strengths. So if I click on this one like so, I've now got contrast on a layer. So I can decide how much contrast I want. And then we've also got color on a layer. So if I like, yeah, the color effect's really good, but the contrast is working a bit too much for this particular photo, then we can fine tune it as we need. Now the style packs you're looking at here, these are styles that are available from Capture One. And as I said, I saw a couple of questions like how can we get the updates. I can't find the person who asked that question, but you know who you are. What's going to happen on November 17th, you're going to receive an email, and that's going to direct you towards the order history in your account. And for any of these style packs that we've updated, so the ones that you can see here, you will be able to download a new updated pack for free. And then you will have the benefit of all those different style packs in those various different layers. So if you have those, then you'll get that update for free. So just keep an eye out on November 17th, you'll receive an email. How do I save my own style with layers? You can do that. So let's just reset this entire picture. So let's say I always do a certain amount of color grading. So let's make a new filled adjustment layer. And I'm going to call this color grade, like so. So that's a filled adjustment layer, so that's the mask over the entire layer. And let's just go on, throw in some color grading. I'm going to set this to 50%. So that means when I apply this style with my layer, then I can have more color grading or less color grading. So, oh, that's interesting. Hang on, let's open up my color balance tool. There we go, little graphical glitch there. So let's say we just do a little bit of color grading on this shot. If I turn the layer on and off, you can see the effect it has. If we boost it up or drop it down, then we can vary the amount of color grading. But the whole point of this is when I come to save my own style, so save my custom style in the Styles and Presets tool, you'll see a new tick box that says layers. So I can now save this with its layer intact, and also remembering the opacity. So if I save this layer and just call this my color grading style, super original name, and we just go to another picture, then I can apply that straight away, and it applies that with that particular layer. Now, doesn't have to be one layer. I'm going to hop to some of Paul Reefer's pictures in a minute, one of our ambassadors, and you can see how he set it up. You can have several layers. So maybe you want to set up your dodge and burn layers. Maybe you're always using a sharpening layer. Could be all kinds of different use cases. So those can just be baked directly into a style. So if we take Paul's example, so let's have a look at layers in styles. So let's have a look at Paul's pack. Paul's pack is going to be one of the ones which is updated. So let's go for this shot. Okay, and then we're going to find elevation by Paul Reifer. And then if I drop on Blockbuster like so and apply that, I've now got two layers, base cooling and warm accents. Let's make that a bit bigger so you can read it, with each varying opacity. So if I like the base cooling, I'm going to boost that a bit more, and a few more warm accents, then I can do so. Same for golden hour as well. Let's find landscapes. Golden hour like so. We've now got base adjustments and warm tones like so. So if I like the warm tones, I can give them a boost. If I like the base adjust, I could boost them up or take them down. So it just makes style packs much more flexible, more versatile, give you better end results. So you can make those yourselves. You don't necessarily have to buy them from us. We'd love you to, of course, but you don't have to. You can make your own style packs with layers. And another thing, certainly with Paul's pack elevation, we can also start shipping you out various different style brushes. So if we go to our style brushes tool, where did I put my style brushes tool? Here it is. So this is a brush which is going to be included with Paul's pack, which helps to get rid of traffic trails. So if I just make my brush a bit bigger, then I can paint over this area, and that's going to kill down those traffic trails. Don't have to be particularly careful with it, and then it's going to take those highlights down. So if I take those off, then you can see the improvement. So as I said, if you're an existing style pack owner, November 17th, check your email, go download the updates, all free of charge. And with Paul's pack, you get that extra brush thrown in as well. Oh, there was a question that came up earlier about Smart Styles. Will it work with black and white files? Yes, it does. And Styles also work with black and white files too. But remember, the black and white tool can't exist on a layer. Okay, but you could save a style that turns on black and white and then has a contrast layer as an example. So yes, you won't be limited, William, don't worry. Oluwatosin, what a great name, and I hope I did that justice. Where is the smart adjustment tool? I can't seem to find it. So if you've saved a custom tool tab, sorry, a custom workspace, then just right click on any tool tab and then say add tool and look for smart adjustments. Okay, so you can do that. Okay, so that's layers and styles wrap up. Now let's have a little look at Capture One Live, and we're back to Daniela's pictures. So I haven't not yet heard from Daniela, so I hope she can pick us up again. If not, what we do is I'll actually bring her back for a live stream with just Daniela and me, and then we can look deeper into her editing and so on, as I'm sure you'll agree these are pretty special. So Capture One Live. What is Capture One Live? So Capture One Live is an online sharing collaboration tool which allows you to have a dialogue with your client, back and forth, synchronizing with Capture One, star ratings and color tags so that they can give you feedback on the shoot, comment on pictures, rate and color tag, so you know exactly what your client wants without having to be in the same room or clustered around the monitor. Now we've made quite a few changes to Capture One Live. The first thing to talk about is the business model, if I use a very technical in-house term, has changed. So previously, Capture One Live was available on subscription only, or you had 5 free sessions and then it's available on subscription. So what we've done now is open it up to all. with a smaller feature set. So if you're on the free version of Capture One Live, a Capture One Live session or time limit lasts for 24 hours. And there's no reviewer collaboration, or sorry, no reviewer management, which you'll see in a minute, but everyone has access to it, completely unlimited. On the subscription, which is $5 a month, $5 a month, then you have access to all the reviewer tools, which you're going to have a look at right now. So I've got this collection here of Daniela's pictures, and we'd like to share them. Imagine I'm Daniela, nowhere near as talented, and we'd like to share them with the client so they can give feedback, add star ratings, and so on and so forth. Now, previously on Capture One Live, what you had to do was click on this button up here which said live, and then go through setting up the shared collection there. But what I can do now is right click on any collection and simply say start sharing. So now that's sharing immediately. And also I can now target people that I want to share to based on their email address. So let's put in my wonderful email address, anycollaborator@gmail.com. Does actually exist. I wish I'd chosen a shorter one because I have a terrible job spelling collaborator, and I can set the level of interaction that this collaborator can have. So I'm going to allow Mr. Collaborator to tag, rate and comment. Then I can just add that like so. I can add more and more people. So if you're working with a group of people, you know, your client, art director, stylist, makeup artist, real estate agent, or whatever, you can add as many of these collaborators as you like. And what will happen is, if we go to my Gmail, like so, my fake Gmail account, we've now been invited, or I have invited myself to a Capture One Live session. So all I need to do is click on Go to Session. Now for extra security, they will have to identify themselves, like so. Verify. Oh, code. See, I told you I should have chosen an Elia one. Verify any collab, well, like so. There we go. So now if I go back to my email once more, I've been given a verification code, like so. So now, nice and secure, no one is getting into this Capture One Live session if I don't want them to. And that's really important. That was a lot of the feedback we had. We added password protection, of course, first of all, but to have reviewer management, it makes sense that people can be specified by email, and then you, the photographer, have the finite control of who has access, what level of access they has, and of course you can revoke it at any time as well. So right now you can see that this star ratings and color tags are identical to the ones that we see. Let's just put that away in Capture One. So look, we've got, yeah, 5 stars, 5 stars. So let's just make this 1 star pretty fast. It's now synced back to Capture One. Let's shove a tag on this one. So that's number 6. We've now got the identical tag here like so. Let's make this one red, and we can see our red tag here. Now this can be on any browser. So I'm, you know, obviously on a laptop, but this could be someone on a mobile phone. It could be an iPhone, it could be an Android, it could be an iPad, it could be an Android tablet. This is just simply a very basic web address like so. So whatever web browser they have, they can access this Capture One Live session. Now also what we can do is, obviously we can look at the pictures nice and big, like so. I can use shortcut keys to add my star rating. So if I press 1 on my keyboard, then I can change my different star rating. If I use my QWERTY keys at the top, I can change the color tag. I can also add comments. So let's open our comment window. If you remember, I'm Mr. Collaborator. I love this shot, Daniela. And speaking of Daniela, she's just calling. So let's bring Daniela back. Hey Daniela, let's see. I'm just bringing her into the room. Can you hear me, Daniela?
I can hear you.
You're back.
Technology. I don't know what just happened.
It's live broadcasting. This stuff happens. So you know, we have this expectation. So it's always a risk when you go live that stuff stuff
I'm so
breaks.
sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Let's share your screen again, and then we have we'll finish off from where we
I
left
was
off.
hearing, I like overheard, because it wasn't working, so I tried to join the YouTube and you
Yeah.
talked about a different session
Oh, I see. But
that we can.
can you share your screen, and then we'll get to
Yeah,
looking
let me let
at
me
what's
let
going
me do
on.
that. Let me do
Cool.
that.
Oops. And people, I would say, oh, there we go. She's back. Unfortunately, I think live interview is not going to work for us today, unfortunately. So, as I said, what we will do is I will bring Daniela back for our own one-to-one session at some point so we can see exactly how Daniela edits her pictures, works with Capture One and so on, because I'd really like to learn more about her shooting and editing process. Okay, so back in the mindset of Capture One Live, so I can put these comments here and notice that now I'm identified who's written the comment. So if you have specified in your Capture One Live, and let's just bring this back up, so you can see my active collections and we can manage access at any point. So you can see any collaborator is part of this session, and then obviously we could add more as well. And then if that different person comments on the same picture or different pictures, then we know who's made that comment, which wasn't possible before with Capture One Live. You could see comments, but they're anonymous. So of course, if we don't know who they're coming from, then it makes that collaboration process a little bit more difficult. I can see comment overviews, so let's just add a comment to this one, like so. And then if we go back to the overview, then I can get to any comment straight away. You can see the performance is really fast. It's not like a heavy internet connection is required because we're sending relatively light data across. So they don't have to be on the best gigabit transfer ever. It can be a nice light connection. And again, on mobile, on tablets, on computers, Mac, PC, doesn't matter, anything with a web browser. So in summary, if you're on the free version, each Capture One live session will last 24 hours, but you don't have the reviewer management that we just saw here. It's just a simple link. If we go back into Capture One, you'll see on the paid for version, each active online collection will last for 4 weeks. So that gives you a longer period to collaborate with your client. It'd be lovely if clients got back to you in 24 hours and told you exactly what they needed, but we know that often doesn't happen. So this way you get a 4-week period like so. Then of course, at any point I can revoke someone's access and now they're taken out of that session. If you want to use a simple link, you can just copy a basic share link as well, and then people identify themselves upon entry as well. So Capture One Live has had, a huge upgrade. There's some stuff been done under the hood as well in terms of performance, and there's more stuff to come as well, possibly even by the end of the year. So keep your eyes peeled if you're interested in Capture One Live. But, you've all got access in Capture One 23, so please try it out. William, can you still copy link as opposed to direct email? Yeah, so you've got a copy link here, you've got a copy share link there. So if you don't want to set up various different collaborators, that's an easy way to do it. They will just identify themselves. So if I copy that share link and then go into this Capture One Live session, then I'm straight into it like so. And you can also set up different access points here. So anyone with a link can tag, rate and comment. But if you prefer them to only view or have no access, again, for more security for that, you've got tons of control. So basically the control is very much in your hands in a big way now. Good question from Paul. If you share a live view, can you quit out that catalog and go on to other jobs? Yeah, absolutely. This does not have to be open. Capture One does not have to be running. You do not have to be in that catalog. Once you've sent those pictures up to the cloud, which is super fast, then anyone can tag, rate and comment, even if you're fast asleep in bed with your computer shut down. So I'm glad you asked that, Paul, because I forget, to inform you that that's the case, but it does not have to be running. It's not like a peer-to-peer connection. Pictures go to the cloud and then they're tagged, rated, commented on. And then of course, when you open up Capture One, those star ratings, color tags are synchronized back. So I can do that. Look, let's just actually shut that down. Have we still got that running? Yep. So if I shut down Capture One to prove to you, and then let's just add 5 stars on this one. Let's open this Capture One back up again. What you'll see is under Share Online, I'm going to say Resume Sharing. And then now that 5-star rating has popped up. So you've just got to click that Resume button if you've closed down Capture One in the meantime. Fantastic. All right. Very last tiny few features. So this will take us 5 minutes. Variants. I've got 3 pictures here. Well, sorry, the same picture done in 3 different ways. Previously, if I picked up a variant and moved it to a different collection, let's just put it over here for the sake of argument, and we look into this, it would bring in all the variants with it. So even though they were variants, they were treated as, an intrinsically linked group of pictures that moved together around into various different collections. But now they're treated separately. So if you like to have, a collection here for black and white pictures, collection for color or whatever in a certain project, then those variants aren't tied together, which is much, much nicer for organizing. Something which has been requested for a long time is this. So if I right click and say change capture time, we can edit the capture time. So if for some unfortunate reason the time is not set correctly on your camera and you're using a couple of different camera bodies, or you're working with someone who's also using a different camera body and their clock isn't set up properly, then it means a group of pictures can be out of sync. So now you can adjust the capture time and date, and this can also be a batch. So if I wanted to advance everything by a minute or so, like so, adjusted by 1 hour, update all, I've now changed the time, like so. So much, much better if you forget to do it, forget to change the time zone, and if you're working with more than one camera body. Small thing, but a big thing if you're on Sony files, is that we've done a little bit of digging around into the raw file and improved the performance by quite a bit. And that's in terms of importing. So when you're importing into Capture One, you should find it's faster. When you're exporting, it's faster. When we're generating previews, that will also be quicker. So if I select all these pictures, again, these are on a Sony a7R4, 60 odd megapixels, uncompressed raw, so pretty hefty. If I go in and say regenerate previews and just bring up where's my activity window, got to move it quick or it'll be done. So these previews are generating 30 to 40% faster. So if you're on Sony cameras, that's a nice little bit of news for you as well. So there we go. That rounds up pretty much what we had to talk about today. So that was our smart adjustments, the faster culling, our layers in styles. Don't forget, if you're an existing styles owner, you will receive that email on November 17th telling you how to get your freebie styles. All the new stuff for Capture One Live, which is pretty extensive, and more to come on that as well. So lots of stuff going on for Capture One 23. And of course, it doesn't stop there. There's always regular updates coming in the coming weeks, months, and so forth. So we will keep improving Capture One as we go. If you haven't had enough of my voice for this past, how long have we been now? Hour and 10 minutes. I was a little bit quicker than I thought. Then there's some more live stuff coming up. So we've got a little project called Experience Capture One Live. So you'll see as these dates roll down, that's going to be split over 3 different sessions. So the 15th, the 22nd and the 29th of November, I'm going to be joined by ambassadors Jan and Quentin, and they're going to go through a whole commercial workflow of using Capture One Live. So we're going to divide that up into shooting, the selection process, and the editing process. all based around Capture One Live. On the 17th of November, I will dig more into smart adjustments. As you can see, it's pretty simple, but we show a few more scenarios. We talk about importing with a smart style as well. So I don't expect that to be longer than 45 minutes. To be honest, it will probably be shorter than that. And then on the 24th of November, we will talk about culling. We'll do some tips and tricks for drilling down to your images, some organization in Capture One as well, how to streamline that and make it all super duper fast. So a whole bunch of stuff coming up. How do you get to sign on for those? That's learn, excuse me, learn.captureone.com. So they're not all up yet on learn.captureone.com, but they will be very, very soon. So learn.captureone.com. That's where we always host tutorials, live streams where you can sign up for. So all that remains for me to say is go and get your trial. So if you haven't downloaded it yet, go to captureone.com and give it a go and see what you think of it. Don't be afraid to stress test smart adjustments and smart styles. Don't be overly careful or conscious about lighting conditions, which people are in it or not in it, and so on. Just you'll be pleasantly surprised, I'm sure. I'm sorry that we didn't get the opportunity to talk to Daniela for very long. As I said, we'll get her back for something else because I'd love to see more of her wonderful photography. But some days, whoops, wrong button, David. Some days live systems just don't want to play. But I love her photography and her attitude and everything. So let's bring her back so we can talk about more of this. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Please go try Capture One 23. Any questions, of course, we're here on social media, always around to help you. Any feature requests, drop them on a support case, and let's have a nice active community, and let's build the Capture One for you in the future as well. So take care, everyone. Thanks for joining me, and see you all again soon. Bye now.